Mama V.
Yay!
And today we're talking about Where the Crawdads Sing. Now what's interesting about this book is that my mom read it first actually about 1.5 years ago. And she gave it to me right after reading it. She's like, Jess, you need to read this book.
Okay, so let me tell you the real story of this. My mother was in a book club and she said, Nikki, you've got to read this book. It's amazing. So I got it and I read it and then I was like, oh my gosh, Jess would love this book. And I gave it to her and I said, Jess, you've got to read this book. Anyway, I checked in. Did you read the book? All of a sudden she started reading again and I'm like, this is awesome. She's going to read this book. Jess, did you read the book? So finally I said to her, I said, do you really think that I would take the time to come after you like this about a book if I didn't think you would love it? So finally she's like, Mom, I'm going to read it. I promise you.
Yeah, she's like, give it back then. And I'm like, no, I will read it. So I read it. I read it in November. It was a really heartfelt and heartbreaking book. So I'm gonna read the synopsis for you guys so you know what it's about, and then we'll get into our thoughts. We're gonna start it off with a non-spoiler, and then we're gonna get into spoilers. So this part is non-spoiler. For years, rumors of the Marsh Girl have haunted Barkley Cove, a quiet town on the North Carolina coast. So in late 1969, when handsome Chase Andrews is found dead, the locals immediately suspect Kaya Clark, the so-called Marsh Girl. But Kaya is not what they say, sensitive and intelligent. She has survived for years alone in the marsh that she calls home, finding friends in the gulls and the lessons in the sand. When two young men from town become intrigued by her wild beauty, Kaya opens herself to a new life until the unthinkable happens. It's a very dark book. Like, I can't think of one moment in the book where there's really happiness.
And first of all, I'd like to give a shout out to North Carolina, where this book was supposed to be about.
We have family there.
We have family cousins. Hi, North Carolina. We love you. This book gives all the feels. I found myself crying, like crying.
So we're gonna give our star rating out of 5. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
Okay, I'm going to give it a 4.5.
Okay, so you're almost a 5.
I'm almost 5.
Wow, okay.
I love this book.
I mean, I could tell.
I love this book. It has everything. If you're looking for heartfelt and meaningful, it has that. If you're looking for romance, it has that.
Crime?
If you're looking for mystery, it has that.
Yeah.
There's not one point in this book where you're not feeling some kind of emotion.
So we're about to get into the spoilers, but before we do, we have to give a spice rating. This didn't have a ton. I would give it a 1 out of 5 because it's not like it's a 0 out of 5. There is some, but it's done well and it's not excessive and it's a fade to black kind of spice.
Yeah. I'm gonna give it a 3.
Okay, we wrote a different book.
Yeah, no. But I think that we view that part differently, and that's okay.
And just trigger warnings, there is some SA in the book. So if that, triggers you in any way, just so you know. All right, so now we're getting into some spoilers. So if you don't want to hear them, you can leave. You can go.
You can go now.
So the book starts off with a bang, a very dark bang, where Kaya's mother leaves her and she's only 6 years old. And she literally watches her mother
walk down the street
in her heels and she never comes back. So that's how we start. With a little girl who has an alcoholic, abusive father. Her siblings leave as well. So it's just Kaya and her dad. And her father doesn't even stick around for that long, okay? He's drinking, he leaves for days at a time. She's trying to cook meals with nothing in the house. A little girl, a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely awful. I mean, that when I first read that, I was like, wow, this is the book I'm about to dive into. I was like, Mom, what did you give me?
It's gut-wrenching. It's gut-wrenching. And the way she writes it, you're feeling everything this little girl's feeling, especially with her mom. And she waits for her to come back. It's devastating.
So this book really, it feels like you're living her life because it literally goes throughout her years of living in this marsh. So as a little kid, as a teenager, into her early 20s, like you're literally there with her the entire time. And for most of that time, she's alone. It's not until she matures and becomes an older teenager that she meets these men in her life who are two complete opposites. One, I feel like genuinely cares for her, and the other one, I guess we can spoil it. So Chase, who is the one who the crime is about, he's found dead. And the book goes from the future to the past. So showing the crime scene of Chase and who killed him, and then showing, Kaya growing up. So,
Chase is just your typical jock. He's very, into himself, and not that all jocks are like that. Please don't send us hate, because they're not. But, he thinks he's pretty special. He's everything in a guy I despise. And I never liked this character.
By the way, I write quotes from the book that I find really impactful. And there was one quote that says, Kaya laid her hand upon the breathing wet earth and the marsh became her mother.
Loved that. Loved that. And I have to say, and I know we differ on this.
Yeah.
I loved the way she wrote with nature. I love the way she brought a lot of things like trees and fields and the marsh itself just came alive for me. Like I could actually visualize me being there. And I know that you felt that was a little too much for you.
Well, the author was originally a nature writer. So like that was literally her career before she started writing fiction. And she wanted to pull that in. And I think that's great. Write what you know, right? That's how you be successful. But I felt like she was forcefully trying to insert pages and pages about like one bird or like the ground or the water. And I love nature, but I felt like it was very excessive.
Oh, I loved it.
Like very excessive.
I think you'll either love that about the book or you won't.
Like I know what a shell looks like. I don't need like 5, paragraphs
but didn't
of
you
it.
feel like you...
I felt the shell.
Okay.
I felt the shell.
I like that.
So Tate was the other guy's name.
Tate.
I loved him, but at the same time, I felt that it was a bit strange that he was intimate with Kaya when she was, I believe she was 14 years old and he was 19. That to me is very strange. I felt like it was almost like he preyed upon her without knowing. It's not like he went there to like be like, oh, I'm older and I'm gonna take advantage. But when I read it, I felt strange about it.
Did you?
A little bit. I felt like she was very young and hence why I think he left.
Yeah, that's when I didn't like him anymore.
Oh.
That's when it went south for me. When he did that...
When he abandoned her?
When he did that, that was it for me. I mean, have a conversation with her. Tell her what you're doing.
So let's talk about... So Kaya has to go through a murder trial because they think that she's guilty for killing Chase. We're just heading right to the end of the book right now. In the end, she is not found guilty. She goes back and lives the rest of her life at the marsh with Tate. And then one day he's rummaging through her stuff. I think he finds something under the floorboards that basically shows she had written a poem about killing Chase. So he finds out she did it, and instead of confronting her or going to the police, he burns it because he loves her. But by the time he found it, she had already passed away. He found her out in a canoe. She had passed away, and that part was really, really sad.
Yeah.
Because she basically died she was literally out in the water amongst the marsh when she passed away, right? Exactly where she wanted to be. But what are your thoughts on her being guilty, living the rest of her life free, and people think that she didn't do it? Like, was that shocking to you? Like, I was very shocked. Was that okay? Like, there's some moral issues with that, right?
Yeah, there definitely is moral issues. And if you ask me if that's okay, no, it's not. But at the same time, you get into this character so much and you feel so deeply for her. And if you think about it, logically, she had no one to raise her.
Yeah.
The person that raised her really was her alcoholic father. So when it comes to morals, when it comes to right and wrong, when it comes to, guiding her and helping her grow and learn, she didn't have that. This story just comes together in such a beautiful way. Not that I ever think that murder is okay, but yeah. I think part of her snapped. I think she was treated so violently so awfully by him.
He SA'd her, and I think that's what made her plummet into the whole, like, I can't let him live for this. He's ruined my life. He's treated me awful. And the thing is, though, the murder was premeditated. Like, she literally planned on luring him to this location and killing him, right? It wasn't like he was in the moment hurting her and she was like, I have to defend myself. She premeditated it. Yeah. Which is what I struggled with at the end. I was like, I love Kaya. How do I, like, deal with this? Because I love her. It feels like you lived her life and then you find out she kills someone in the end.
Yeah, it's shocking. Yeah, I hope you're not watching this if you plan on reading it. But
you were warned.
I knew you were warned. But I think that, once again, I love characters. Yeah. And I love character flaws because I think that's what makes us human.
Yeah.
So when writers really tap into that, for me, it just brings the character to a different place.
Yeah.
And so I like that. I'm not saying that I like that she did it and I don't like that people do things like that. I'm not saying that at all. Yeah. But I'm saying based on this character who had nothing, who fought for everything. Think about it. It's like an animal living in the woods. If an animal comes across something that's going to hurt it or, it's it's gonna bite. It's gonna fight for its life. And I feel like that's what she did. You know, she fought for her life, and that meant getting rid of something that was a potential danger to her. And that's all she knew.
Very deep book, very effective and emotional. I went through so many emotions reading this, and I honestly teared up at the end when Tate found her in her boat, passed away. I thought it was just a really sad conclusion. And the last thing I want to say is too many poems. Too many poems.
I love that.
There's a poem every 10 pages.
I love it. I love that. Everything that you struggled with this book, I loved about the book, which is, you know, I noticed when I watched your first review, you talked about we can agree to disagree.
Yeah.
And that actually makes for great conversation.
I hope you guys enjoyed our review. Mom and I read a lot of books together. So I'm sure in the future we'll do a lot more videos on this channel because we read the same things and we love the same things. So yeah.
But we feel differently.
We do.
We do.
Which is good, which makes it interesting for you guys at least as well, right? So anyways, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day and we'll see you in our next book review.
Happy reading.
Bye.
Bye.